for the past for the past few webinars, you will know that this is our third session. In the first session, we explored from soil to systems, scaling climate adaptation through agroecology and community-led action. Our second session focused on technology for regenerative agriculture. Today's webinar is on converging schemes and policies for food system change, which will explore how policies and schemes can better support innovations like microbial tech, farm-led models, and sustainable practices to build a climate-resilient food system in India. Before we dive in, I would like to take a minute to share about the Sustain Agri Challenge. The challenge aims to identify and support innovative technologies, business models, and on ground solutions that promote sustainable and climate resilient agriculture in India. With increasing concerns around greenhouse gas emissions, soil degradation, and climate led risks in agriculture, the challenge invites applications from agri-startups as well as NGOs and non-profit organizations. There is also grant money. Selected participants will receive non-dilutive cash award of up to INR 20 lakhs, expert mentorship and capacity building support, national visibility, and also opportunities to connect with leading ecosystem partners. And now, to give you a quick glimpse of what the challenge is all about, I would like to request my colleague Ananya to play a short video that will give you a quick overview of the challenge.
I guess Ananya, there is no audio for the video which we are playing.
Ananda, can you replay that? There was no audio in this video.
Grounded innovation. Pressure keeps rising. Soils are weaker, weather's wilder, farmers are left to adapt alone. But what if the solutions already exist and just need a push? The Greenovation Sustain Agri Challenge is here to find them. An initiative by Earth-On and Switch-On Foundation. We are looking for startups and NGOs working on innovative and practical solutions. We want to hear from you. Startups with scalable tech, NGOs with community-driven models. This challenge is for both. Wondering what's in it for you? Win up to 20 lakhs rupees in non-dilutive grants, plus capacity building sessions and networking opportunities. The future of Indian agriculture needs grounded innovation. Apply now.
Thank you, Ananya. I hope this video has helped to set the context for the challenge and what it aims to achieve. The last day to apply is 14th August 2025. And for complete details and eligibility criteria, you could visit our website, which is www.earthonfoundation.org. The link will also be shared in our chat box. And if you have any queries related to the challenge, please drop them in the chat box. We will try our best to answer them. I would now like to take a moment to introduce our esteemed speakers. We are joined today by a distinguished panel of experts, each bringing deep expertise in agriculture, policy, and the transformation of food systems. Please join me in welcoming Ashok Talwai, IS retired chairman, Karnataka Agriculture Price Commission, KPAC, Government of Karnataka. He is an economist and policy expert with over 4 decades of public service. With a master's in agriculture economics and doctorate in economics, he has served senior roles across state and central governments, including Secretary in Ministry of Agriculture. Known for leading the 14-volume Double Farmers Income Report, he has shaped transformative policies in agriculture, industry, urban governance, and technology. His contributions spans Aadhaar implementation, Swachh Bharat Bengaluru, agricultural marketing reforms, and national watershed guidelines. Next, we have with us Amit Kale, Incubation Manager, Institute of Integrated Learning and Management University. With over a decade of expertise in business development, marketing, and the startup ecosystem, Mr. Kale is a passionate enabler of grassroots innovation. He has led incubation programs at AICTT, Baramati Foundation, Manage, and IILM, contributing to government initiatives like PMFME and Atal Incubation Center. His expertise lies in building end-to-end support systems for early stage startups through outreach, capacity building, mentorship, and fundraising. Next, we have with us Dr. Richa Kumar, Associate Professor of Sociology and Science and Technology Studies, IIT Delhi. Dr. Kumar is a social scientist with over 2 decades of expertise in agriculture, food systems, and rural policy. Her research critically examines the impacts of monoculture, farming on ecosystems, human health, and livelihoods. She is the author of Rethinking Revolutions and co-author of the State of Rural and Agrarian Report 2020. A PhD from MIT, she is also a recipient of the New India Fellowship. Her work has been featured on platforms such as TEDx, Vice News, and Scoopful. Next, we have with us Dr. Reena Singh, Senior Fellow, Agricultural Policy, Sustainability and Innovation, ICR-IER. With over 20 years of experience in sustainable agriculture and microbiology, Dr. Reena is a specialist in mycorrhizal technologies. She has led Delhi's Center for Mycorrhizal Research for 15 years, and her expertise covers climate resilient agriculture, wasteland management, and policy research with a strong focus on strategy planning, value chain analysis, and multi stakeholder global projects. And moderating this important conversation today, we have with us Ramanshu Ganguly, Associate Director, Climate Insights, Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. Mr. Ganguly leads the Sustainable Agriculture and Land Use Initiatives and also oversees Shakti's monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework, integrating evolution as a vital component of program systems to maximize impact. With over 12 years of experience in evaluative research, he specializes in climate smart agriculture, energy access, and natural resource management and systems transformation. Without further delay, I now invite Ramanshuda to lead us through this important conversation.
Thank you, Amita. And thanks for this setting the context over here. I'm really pleased and honored to moderate this session with great experts here. Just wanted to check, is Dr. Dalwai already has he joined or
He's yet to join.
he's yet to join? Okay. No, just thanks a lot, Amrita, again for setting the context. And so this entire conversation, and I was also listening in the way your the entire webinar series has been arranged. I think it covers a vast area of things when we are talking about the entire shift to more sustainable agriculture. And I think the concept today or the theme today around policy convergence, I think it becomes very critical, especially at the stage the entire ag food systems are at right now. We are at a very, very critical juncture. At one end, we do realize that agriculture is one of the highest emitters when it comes to, while it's still not recognized as much, but it is the third highest emitting sector in India. And in fact, there are reports that the agri emissions are increasing over years. But at the same time, it's also highly vulnerable to any kind of climatic shocks. At the other end, it's a sector which employs a huge part of our population. So when we actually start talking about this sector and the transition for this sector, the interesting part that comes in and the challenging part that comes in is we're looking at multiple systems that's there. At one end, we are trying to shift or strengthen the overall climate resilience of this production system, trying to look at how climate sustainable or climate sensitive agricultural practices can be adopted at one end. Also trying to look at how this entire space can be a lot more resilient, but also we need to ensure that the lives and livelihoods that it caters to, they also need to thrive. So we are trying to talk about a very delicate balance between three, four, or multiple systems over here. And that's where policy comes into play. Policy is such a beautiful tool that actually helps us, create these multi-systemic shifts and create this change through speed and scale. Uh, in fact, if we look at India and if we look at the overall agri policy structure, I think there are beautiful policies that already exist. I mean, over the past few years, if we look at the way, the entire push for more sustainable agriculture has come in, like, for example, we have PM Pranam, the National Mission for Natural Farming. These policies have come in, which actually talks about a lot of political will and intent to push towards sustainable agriculture. Yet, we do not see as much or, the commensurate adoption happening. Now, I think that's what we could discuss today, is how do we leverage this, great, great platforms that we have to create a more holistic transitional shift that actually is able to ensure that there's win across all of the sectors that we're talking about. So I think with no further ado, I'll begin into the conversation here. We'll wait for Dr. Dalwai to come in whenever we start. But I think for now, we'll start with you, Dr. Kumar. Dr. Kumar, you have been a part of the steering committee of the NCNF, and natural farming, as we understand in India, is highly appreciated. I mean, we have been talking about ZVNF for quite some time. There are so many NF clusters that has been even identified after the mission was launched. Yet, if we look at the on ground, the adoption, it perhaps has not happened for a variety of reasons. I think my question to you, Dr. Kumar, here is, how can the existing policy provisions be better capitalized or leveraged for the due adoption for natural farming?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here and see so many people participating in questions around agriculture and sustainability. So thank you for inviting me. To briefly respond to your question, Ramanshu, I'll take it in two parts. One is actually looking at the input side and one is looking at the output or the market side. So if we just briefly go back to the Green Revolution, the Green Revolution was a massive intervention in agriculture that we did, 60 years ago now. And we did it at a time when we had very few resources. We had fought a couple of wars. We had a huge foreign exchange issue. There were all kinds of other contentions going on. And yet we found the resources to provide a comprehensive package to farmers, which is what ultimately incentivized them to shift to this new kind of technology. So there was not only was there supply side or input side provisions for farmers, including subsidized seeds and irrigation, electricity, machinery, fertilizers, of course. But then there was a whole output side support to farmers where the government purchased everything that farmers grew in terms of the new varieties of wheat and then rice, and then eventually sugarcane, and bought it at minimum support prices, and there was guaranteed purchase. And so farmers were cushioned in this transitions because this was also a very significant transition, a very high risk transition that farmers undertook. But they were cushioned in it from both the input side as well as the output side. Now, if one wants to talk about natural farming today, or I would rather use the term agroecological farming, which subsumes, a whole variety of kinds of nature-sensitive farming practices that people do. I mean, we have organic farming in our country and biodynamic farming and, various other, there are tens of names that people use for these practices. But today we are in an environment where, in the Green Revolution, there was no policy actively militating against the Green Revolution policies of the government. Today, it's almost like, the right hand is doing one thing and then the left hand is doing something else. So while the government is, let's say, doing NMNF and promoting natural farming in a whole variety of ways, which I find quite positive, at the same time, we are continuing with our urea subsidies and only urea subsidies. No subsidies for any other kind of fertilizers or other kinds of possibilities. We are continuing with free electricity in states like Punjab. Where in fact, ironically, in the name of promoting new technology, we have done so much solar electrification of irrigation in this country. And now, we are finally ruining the fact that, oh, now the groundwater levels are going down because of solar irrigation. I mean, we knew that. So in some ways, this whole question of policy convergence, I think, is very, very important. That we need, in fact, today or yesterday in the papers, there has been an announcement of the government trying to bring together a multiple set of schemes for, I think, about 100 districts or so, the aspirational districts. But once again, the way to identify those districts is where there is less amount of credit available. Now, we don't want farmers indebted. One of the problems in the Green Revolution has been a great deal of indebtedness. We want to, in some ways, make them reliant. But, to come back to answer your question, what will it take for this kind of shift to happen? The kind of support we gave to farmers at the time of the Green Revolution, if we are able to provide, if we move the urea subsidy from urea to all kinds of bio inputs, or if we move the electricity irrigation subsidy to figuring out ways in which farmers can actually conserve water on their lands and use crops that, today, unfortunately, wherever we provide irrigation, farmers then move to water intensive crops. We are subsidizing, sugarcane more and more because of ethanol. There are all kinds of other linkages in the system that we need to understand. So it's again, not just about agricultural policy. We need to understand our fuel policy, and, bring convergence in different kinds of ways. And then the other, point, if I still have a bit of time, is to look at the demand side, where one very easy solution in front of us, which has been tried by several of our states in different kinds of ways. Tamil Nadu does a little bit of it, Orissa, Karnataka, where we are purchasing from farmers good food that they're growing, but diverse food that they're growing. So instead of only providing rice, wheat, and sugar in the public distribution system, or instead of providing that RUTF flour, based stuff for our children in the Anganwadi system, can we create decentralized production and procurement systems where we buy millets and we provide millets, pulses, oilseeds, our oilseeds? The government has this whole policy now, Atmanirbhar Bharat for oil, but we are promoting palm oil cultivation in the Northeast. I can go on and on about, palm oil is great for West Africans, where it is originally from. It's red in color. It's got a huge color flavor. But not everybody can eat it. But the palm oil that we get is completely stripped of all its flavor, color, but most importantly, the nutrition. It's really not good for us. But that's exactly what the government is really promoting. So can we promote so if you purchase, the government itself is a huge buyer and can create a lot of demand. So if the government purchases millets, pulses, oilseeds, and then at the decentralized level, the government enables purchase of fruits, vegetables grown on natural farms, of uncultivated foods that are available. This is right now the jamun season. And, jamun is packed with all kinds of nutrients, if we can, but, it's not really part of the children's lives today. Most children in many parts of the country will really not know what jamun actually is. So how do we bring that back? And we already have policy mechanism existing that can bring that back into the system. So I'll stop there and thank you.
No, Dr. Kumar, I think you really very passionately raised a couple of points, and those are essentially the challenges that we have. We do have a lot of contradicting or provisions that antagonize a lot of positive movements that's there. The Dhan Dhanya Yojana, I think you were referring to that. It actually talks about beautiful integration, but I think there are challenges on operationalizing these bits. But I think I'll just reach out to Dr. Singh at this juncture, because Dr. Singh, you have done considerable work, especially around these fronts. You have actually gone through a detailed time series analysis of budgets for, I think, the last 25 years to understand how the policy provisions have favored what kind of elements of this entire agri-food transition system. And hence you have also looked at identifying opportunities. But again, taking the cue from Dr. Kumar's point and this overall the transition narrative that we're trying to build over here is, how do we actually create that shift, and what kind of policy provisions do exist, and how, I think so yeah, Dr. Singh, I'll just hand it over to you. If you can just help us with some reflections that you have done through your work on this front, especially around the repurposing of agri subsidies.
Yeah, Thank you, Ramanshu. Thank you, organizers, for organizing this most useful webinar. And to take forward the point of Dr. Richa Kumar, that she has rightly mentioned that when these policies they have come up at the time of Green Revolution, at that time our country was actually the food importer country, and our policymakers they were creating all those input and output policies so that our farmers they are able to kind of get all the input supports for the fertilizers and for other machineries so that they are able to grow the high yielding varieties and the output support in the form of MSP so that they have this ensured market for their whatever produce they are producing, the wheat and rice basically. So at that point of time we have ample natural resources, we have water availability, and then our soil were also good. Apart from the nitrogen deficiency, I mean, our soils were fine with the phosphorus, potassium, and other micronutrients. And then we otherwise they were all self-sustainable. So they were supposed to be in the sense for the natural resources I'm talking. So government has not bothered to talk about those natural resources and environment in the policy making. So the primary objective of the government policies was what happened with those policies over a period of time, because the urea was subsidized at 80 to 80% of the subsidy, where phosphorus and potassium, like these nutrients, these fertilizers, they are not subsidized. They're subsidized with 67% of the cost is bear by the farmers, and it's only 33 to 34% of the part of the cost it's the government is bearing. So there was a distorted and very skewed kind of a subsidy started happening with respect to this even within the fertilizer, it's the urea and other phosphorus and the potash fertilizers. With this the subsidy, wherever the government is giving the subsidies to those fertilizers, then the skewed NPK ratio started happening, and the farmers they are over applying urea. With over application of urea, all those contamination issues and environmental relation starts happening. Like if they're over applying nitrogen, then definitely the 4:2:1 ratio, now it is reaching is now the latest is 11.8 is to 4.6 is to 1. So that's the latest average Indian ratio. In some states like in Punjab, it's even higher, where the farmers are having very. What is happening? The entire urea is not getting used by the plants. The nitrogen, the nutrient use efficiency is basically, it's somewhere around 34-35%. So we can now think like, say, it's just a 34 to 35% of the fertilizer is getting used by the plant, and rest is getting it's basically a waste. So it's getting converted to it's nitrous oxide. It's the basically the greenhouse gas emission, which is 273 times more powerful than carbon dioxide, when we just talk about with reference to how the temperature increase it can cause. So that is one aspect. And then it leaches out some of the nitrates. It goes to the ground water table, and it is also contaminating our groundwater tables, and it is also causing a lot of health related problems. And apart from this, we also have this when all these fertilizers are you're adding, then definitely the environment, the soil degradation is happening. So these are all negative impacts of the our policies, which the government they have not envisioned at that point of time when their role was to actually ensure the food security. So those policies are definitely were required, and now we are the food surplus, and in fact the net exporter. So we are now exporting, the food grains. So we are now in that state, and now we always have the buffer stock, and it's I will say the excess buffer stock with the wheat and rice. It is an excess. So at this point of time, we should be thinking about the policies to just align with the environment. And we have done a time course analysis. It's kind of a 25 years analysis. We looked at the budget documents, and it's not just the Ministry of Agriculture which is supporting agriculture. Although agriculture, I will say it's a state subject by constitution. But since it has its strategic importance, as Ramanshu has also mentioned, like it is, it's a very high percentage of the population. It's roughly 45 to 46%. It is they're involved in the profession in agriculture as a livelihood. And then it is giving 18% of the GDP to the country. And then the government has a role to play, like the government is providing free food to 800 million population. So it's very unique and very special for our country. And that's the reason, or even if it is a state subject, the central government it provides puts a lot of money apart from the Ministry of Agriculture. The budget of Ministry of Agriculture, if it is 1,32,000 crores. So apart from it, like the fertilizer subsidy, which is another ministry, it puts a lot of budget, like somewhere around 2 lakh crores subsidy is given to the fertilizer subsidy. I'm giving the average of the last 2 3 years. And then the food ministry, the Ministry of the Civil Supplies, in the form of the food subsidy, it's actually 2,58,000 crores. So that's the amount of subsidy which is giving, which is with the government is spending on this particular sector. So this is just three ministries I've just mentioned, but there are 8 ministries, like even the Ministry of Jal Shakti in the form of the irrigation schemes. We have the major, minor, and the medium schemes where the government is spending on the irrigation infrastructure creation and giving subsidy to the farmers. And then we have the rural development, ministry, where in the form of employment generation, Manrega, and even the road creation, the government is spending. I'm saying the employment generation, it's not only for agriculture, but the government, the 65 to 66 67% of the budget of Manrega, it goes for the agriculture and the light sector, in the form of like the water, the conservation schemes, and then the plantation. So that budget is also going to this agriculture sector. Then these are basically the main ministries, I will say. And total 8 ministries we have. And then we looked at the around 46 schemes with 87 components which are relevant to the agriculture sector. And I cannot just talk in detail about each of these things, but quickly I will say that we have also tried to categorize, in the form of how these schemes and how all these things on the basis of environment and on the basis of its impact on environment and its basis of impact on the biodiversity. So we found like we created, and it forms 22% of the total support. And if we talk about the total support of the last 3 years, it was somewhere around, it was 7,076 billion. And out of that 7,076 billion, the positive support, it was 1,483 billion. So that was positive, we can say. And those are schemes which have like, which are focusing on the R&D, which are focusing on, like, we have sustainable development, agriculture initiatives like natural farming, Paramparagat Krishi Yojana, Krishi Vikas Yojana. All there are few schemes which are very good for the environment. So all these, if we are adding all those schemes and including the irrigation, like, per drop more crop and all those schemes. So they're very good for the environment, but it comprises only 22% of the total agriculture budget. And if we talk about 13% of the schemes, it's basically out of that 7,076 billion, it's 940 billion rupees. They are basically the biodiversity and the environment neutral. Neutral, why I'm saying? Because like if we are giving the support in the form of the income support, for example, we have the schemes like Ministry of Agriculture, they are supporting farmers in the form of their like PM Kisan. It's like 6,000 every month, every year. The government is giving in the quarter in the form of three, installments. So that is, if the government is giving directly to the farmer, so it is not positive or negative, whatever. It's completely neutral to the environment. So, and we have this other schemes like PM Jan Dhan Yojana, all these income support, which is directly going to the account of the farmer. So these are the neutral things. So it's basically the 13% is the share. And but if we talk about schemes like fertilizer subsidy, I also mentioned in detail regarding that, the skewed NPK ratio and the negative impacts on the environment. So all these and the diesel subsidy, because it is actually creating the emissions, pesticide subsidy. So all these schemes, they are negative to the environment. So it comprises a very high percentage, which is 28%. And 28%, that means somewhere around 1,483 billion. And the food
Dr.
subsidy
Singh,
also.
yeah, sorry. I just wanted to you've been on like thanks for laying out this entire landscape very beautifully, looking at these three classifications. But I just wanted to pick on the point around R&D and innovations that you did mention, and there is and in fact your report also suggests that there is kind of not commensurate investments around that trend. And I feel as well, and I think I'll just pick on this point to take my question to Mr. Kali over here, is around the scale up of innovations. Because at one end, for us to transition from where we are at our agricultural situation to a more sustainable area, definitely policy is a place where the government is doing the push. That's one system that we are talking about. But another critical ecosystem that I feel is the entire ag tech and the startup ecosystem. So, Mr. Kale, my question to you here is: so there have been a lot of startups in India, especially around ag tech. But I think my pointed question to you here is: what is the challenge do you see that the ag tech space faces in India today?
Yeah, first of all, good evening all, and thank you so much, organizers, for giving the opportunity to be the very part of the very important topic on this part, the sustainability and the food security. So my co-panelists are already mentioned about the how the revolution is happened after the post freedom of the India, like after the 1966 and 72, very difficult situations for us from the food security point of view. So Richa ma'am talked about the green revolution, and of course in 1991, 1992, we open up our global economy, to get the foreign investment, and of course there was a need which actually create these kinds of policies and revolutions. And what I believe, like after 2014-15, we come to the another revolution, sort of make in India and the startup India, and where we feel like after the food security, after opening our global economy to the market, we need such a solutions which actually try to solve the problems that may be in a different domains, maybe in a clean tech, or maybe into the environment related, or maybe into the agri domain. And yes, of course, that revolution is begin from that a year onwards, I would say. Of course, we heard a lot of about the startups. It's not like that this is something, a word which is we are hearing right from the 2015. Earlier also, DST, even many departments, EDI, they were exist, and they're trying to promote this entrepreneurship kind of culture and the startup ecosystem across the country. But a very structured framework which is came into the place after the 2015. So I would say that that year onwards, we are begin the new era of the entrepreneurship of the startups. Coming to your question, I would say it's a very, very simple and a very tough question as well, because a L number of challenges and problems are there which agri startups are facing into their real life, daily life, and they have a lot of expectations as well. So the first thing which I would say from the agri startups point of view, that the data points, like startups, they have very limited resources in terms of manpower, in terms of money to spend and to do the market research. And there is a research happen and which is saying that out of 10 startups, 9 gets failed because they're not able to identify right the need of the customers. And it's true, in fact, because of the data which they are not able to do, at the primary level. There are resources constraints are there. And that actually leads to the lack of the market research and identifying the right customer for them. That's the one challenge, which especially any startup, not only the agri startups, but basically any startups, what they face. When it comes to the agri and agri domain, I worked, I mean, more than 10 years I'm in this domain. And what I observe, the thing is like, get the access to the, to the farmers. What I mean it, especially the small farm holders that too in remote areas, because, to reach them, connectivity is another challenge, infrastructure is another challenge, but the land fragmentation and to come up with a good solution with the small farmers is a big challenge for them, because whatever global, if you see the solutions, they made it for the very big and the huge farmers. But here, the farm size is another thing. The purchasing power of the farmers is another thing. Considering these all constraints, they have to come up with very, affordability is another concern with the best solution. So technology, although the scientist, even the government is coming with a lot of policy interventions where the startups get easily access to the technology which research organizations, government institutions are trying to do, but still there is some gap between, like, the platforms are missing, like who will connect the startups with these institutions. And there the incubators are comes into the picture, and that's why I'd say the startup India come up with a lot of ministries are coming with incubation policies. So I work with Niti Aayog's Atal Incubation Centers policy. Then I work with MSME's LBI, and of course the Agriculture Ministry with the RKPY. So what I found it, the incubators are the such a platforms which actually connect these agri startups to the relevant stakeholders. What I mean it, to the market players, to the angel investors, to the VCs, and even to these government institutions where they can connect directly. So I would say that startups are get failed, or what the challenge they face, that they're not able to connect very well to the right stakeholders. That's the another forum. Another thing is like, what I believe, I am being a sons of the farmer. Farmers' tendency is that seeing is the believing. What the principle they follow. There is a say in Marathi like "Baap दाखव नाही तर श्राद्ध घाल." What it means, you show your father, otherwise you do the pray for your God. Like that they said. So they believes on what is demonstrated. They follow usually to the progressive farmers, and that's where startups need to spend a lot of money. To give the mock-up, to give the demos, to give sort of things, and they cannot burn their money. To give a demonstration at a large scale, and that's the only thing. Like they lack to create that trust, they lack to create that, they're not able to win the, confidence of the farmers. And at the end, what happens, they are burning their monies, are not able to generate the revenue over the time. And whatever savings they have, they are not able to, scale up at a large another level. Coming to the another era, like of course it comes always with the money and funding access. Although government come up with a lot of funding, like through RKBY, we would able to support up to 25 lakh rupees, early stage for 5 lakh rupees for the prototype development. Niti Aayog come up with a Startup India Seed Fund scheme for up to 50 lakhs rupees. Barak and Nidhi Praya, such a grants are there from the various ministries. But again, there is a nightmare for the starters. What I believe, there is no centralized process where the single central application can get access to the funding to the all schemes of the ministries. All the Startup India is trying to do, try to get all the information at one platform, but still different ministries has their different agendas. So it is quite difficult at the government at a policy level to, take all the schemes at one plane. But of course, it will happen in a coming up days, and I'm very hopeful for that. So coming to the again the part of the funding, agri tech startup is not like you have developed a delivery app and you can next day or over the time you can generate the money, because it will take time to build the revenue, build the trust, and it will take a time to scale it up. And when they approach to the VCs or to the investors, they are looking into the ROI. Like when the startups will start generating the money and I'll getting my reinvestment, whatever I invested into the startups getting to me back. Of course, I would not say that everybody is failed. There are very good examples of the startups who got approached to the VCs and they become very good startups. But still, Ramanchu, if you ask me, unfortunately, out of 170 unicorns, there is no one is a proper agri domain unicorn is not existing. And that's what where we are trying, to take agri, or maybe some startups will come and become the unicorn. Of course, they are very close to for that to close the deal. But unfortunately, agri, of course, the gestation time for the startup is very, very hard and very, very long, as compared with the biotech startups, because they need to go with the, very thorough process and the formalities. Same way, agri startups also need some time, to get into the sustainability part. And apart from that, of course, many challenges are there, Ramunchu, as I'll take with a little small time because we are talking a lot of things. But infrastructure, access to the funding, legal policy things. Then I'll take up another 1 minute on the validation part. So, like when a startup say that this technology is very innovative, he needs kind of certification and he needs to get validation from the government or a paper. And that's where he fails. Like, bhai kisne thappa diya hai? That mark is really important.
Dr. Kale, do you mind? I'll come back to you on this thing because a couple of points that you raised, I actually wanted to pick those and have a
Sure.
conversation. But I understand you are going to a very interesting space, and I would want to pick on that. Also, I was just reading the comments in the chat room, and I think a very pertinent point is made. So, could we actually shift our language to Hindi or a mix of Hindi and English? I think that would be in the interest of a lot of our participants, and I think that is the essence of this conversation. तो pardon मेरी हिंदी बहुत अच्छी तो है नहीं, especially to moderate a discussion. But I will try my best. So that is here. Dr. Singh, Dr. Kumar, Amit जी, अगर हिंदी में हम ये बातचीत करें so
I will कोशिश करेंगे.
हाँ, मतलब मैं भी उसी स्टेज में हूँ, बीच बीच में इंग्लिश चाहिए, बट एटलीस्ट फॉर द सेक ऑफ दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन हम लोग कोशिश करते हैं जितना हिंदी में हम इस चीज को कर सकते हैं. बट एक्चुअली अमित जी, आपने कुछ कुछ चीजें बोले हैं, मुझे वो वाला चीज बहुत अच्छा लगा जो सीइंग इज बिलीविंग. सो अगर हम फार्मर्स के पास जाते हैं तो अगर मैं नहीं देखता हूँ कुछ एक चीज, मुझे विश्वास नहीं होने वाला है उस चीज पे. तो मैं उसी ट्रेन से डॉक्टर कुमार आपके पास आना चाहता हूँ कि आपने बहुत सारा ऐसे काम किया है अराउंड एग्रीकल्चर ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन जो इज नॉट, मतलब एग्रीकल्चर डायरेक्ट नहीं है, वो सोशल सिस्टम्स के ऊपर बात करती है. आपने एग्रो इकोलॉजी के बारे में बात किया जो नेचुरल सिस्टम्स के ऊपर है. सो हम जब ये एग्री ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की बात करते हैं, हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट डू यू थिंक, मतलब हमारे जो इंटरवेंशंस है या हमारे जो पॉलिसी डिजाइंस है, बोथ, क्योंकि एक एंड पे हम लोग स्टार्टअप्स के बारे में बात करें विच इज लाइक कंप्लीटली टेक प्राइवेट लेड ग्रुप, एंड देन इस साइड हम लोग पॉलिसीज के बारे में भी बात कर रहे हैं, विच इज सो इन दोनों में हमारे डिजाइन में कितना इम्पोर्टेंट होता है ये जो पैरेलल सिस्टम्स है उसको नजर में रखना, एंड वो कितना इम्पोर्टेंट होता है, एंड वो किस हद तक अभी ऑलरेडी इनबिल्ट है. सो आई थिंक माय क्वेश्चन टू यू इज कि इसका इम्पोर्टेंस क्या है और इस चीज को हमें और मेनस्ट्रीम करने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए.
Right, thank you. It was wonderful actually listening to both Dr. Singh as well as Amit ji on many of these issues. And I wanted, in fact, to take some of that information from Dr. Singh on the budgets because it is very important what you were saying. जो ये पैरेलल का सवाल पूछा है ना आपने कि हम इकोलॉजी को, इकोनॉमी को, सोशल इश्यूज को, बट आई विल ऑल्सो ब्रिंग इन वन मोर डायमेंशन, हेल्थ को, इन सबको साथ में मिलके कैसे हम लेके चले. एंड ब्रीफली आई वांट टू टेक अस बैक टू द ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन अगेन. वो थोड़ा सा मेरा पेट सब्जेक्ट है क्योंकि एक ये पब्लिक में धारणा बनी है, पॉलिसी मेकर्स में भी धारणा बनी है, एक जनरल आम बिलीफ है कि 1960s में हमें ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की जरूरत थी और हम इतने गए गुजरे थे, हमारे पास खाना नहीं था, हम इंपोर्ट कर रहे थे, इसलिए हमारे को ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की जरूरत थी। बट पिछले 20 साल में इतनी नई रिसर्च निकल के आई है जो हमें कह रही है कि एक्चुअली देयर इज नो डेटा टू सपोर्ट दिस असर्शन एट ऑल। मतलब बिफोर द ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन केम इन वी वर इंपोर्टिंग व्हीट, PL480 व्हीट, एंड देयर वर स्पेसिफिक रीजंस फॉर दैट। अमेरिका के पास बहुत सारा गेहूं था, वो दुनिया भर में उसको भेज रहे थे, यूरोप में भेज रहे थे, मार्शल प्लान में PL480 के जरिए अफ्रीका, एशिया सब जगह बेच रहे थे, नहीं तो उनको तो अपने समुद्र में फेंकना था वो गेहूं। और हमारे लिए वो फ्री गेहूं आया क्योंकि ब्रिटिश ने जो हमारा सत्यानाश करा था वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के बाद, वो राशनिंग सिस्टम लगा के हमारा बिल्कुल मार्केटिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फ्रॉम आवर हिंटरलैंड टू आवर सिटीज वेयर वी नीडेड दिस द व्हीट, जो PL480 व्हीट आई, जो गेहूं आया, वो गांव गांव भर थोड़ी गया, बिहार में थोड़ा बहुत गया 1966 में, बाकी तो सारा जो शहरों में जो राशन सिस्टम था, ओनली इन अर्बन एनक्लेव्स, वहां पे इंडस्ट्रियल वर्कफोर्स को, द प्रिविलेज फोक्स ऑफ आवर कंट्री वर गेटिंग दैट राशन एक्सेस एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, and it was quite minimal. At no point was it more than 10% of actually what we were consuming. 90% तो हम अपना ही उगा के अपना ही खा रहे थे। But we believed that हाँ हमारे पास खाने की कमी है. There was such a big discourse around it. There are some very interesting, I've shared in the chat to Ifra, I think. तो वो 3 छोटे वीडियोस हैं जो आपको ये कहानी बहुत अच्छी तरीके से बताते हैं कि असली में क्या हुआ एंड क्यों हमने ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन की ये टेक्नोलॉजीज अडॉप्ट करी। बट तुरंत अडॉप्ट करने के बाद इसका इम्प्लीकेशन क्या हुआ है? आई मीन आई एम टेलिंग दिस होल स्टोरी फॉर दिस पैरेलल कन्वर्जेंस क्वेश्चन ऑफ योर्स, because we focused only on rice and wheat. We focused only on food in a very narrow definition of food as cereals and these 2 cereals. And within a decade, less than a decade, we started importing pulses and oil seeds. The 2 things that we have been producing the most in our country and then consuming the most. I mean, we are in the world's largest producer of pulses. And yet we are the world's largest importer of pulses for 40-50 years, oil seeds for 40-50 years. तो ये कहाँ का फूड सिक्योरिटी है कि आपने 2 क्रॉप्स में अपने आप को सिक्योर कर दिया, बट आप पल्सेस एंड ऑयल सीड्स भर भर के इंपोर्ट कर रहे हो, विच आर सो इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर आवर हेल्थ एंड विच आर अनअफोर्डेबल टू द मासेस। लोग ऑयल सीड्स नहीं अफोर्ड कर सकते, दाल तो भूल ही जाओ, इतने बड़े दाम हो गए दालों के। And moreover, because of this policy, we completely moved away from millet production in our country. अगर आप पुराने historical, there's a website we have curated called foodcultures.org. वो chat में I can put it later. बट उसमें वी हैव बीन ट्राइंग टू आस्क पीपल कि आप पुराने जमाने में क्या खाते थे, आपके ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स क्या खाते थे, एंड इट टर्न्स आउट दैट इवन द मोस्ट इलीट पीपल इन आवर कंट्री वर नॉट व्हीट कंज्यूमर्स, वेरी फ्यू। गेहूं खाते भी थे तो उसको मिला के खाते थे, जौ और चने के साथ गेहूं को मिला के खाया जाता था। देयर आर सर्टेन अगेन हेल्थ रीजंस रिलेटेड टू दैट दैट पीपल शेयर। सो द डायमेंशन ऑफ हेल्थ एंड द डायमेंशन ऑफ इकोलॉजी, जैसे डॉक्टर रीना ने बहुत अच्छे से हमें बताया कि इकोलॉजी का डायमेंशन, हेल्थ का डायमेंशन कहीं पे भी दूर दूर तक इस पॉलिसी में इमेजिनेशन में था ही नहीं। livelihoods were supported with the subsidies, and food security in a very, very narrow way was supported, but it has created more of a disaster. I mean, I would say the big health crisis that we see today, I don't know आपने पिछले हफ्ते में सुना है कि नहीं, but there has been a big push by our prime minister and by various ministries to talk about motapa in this country, obesity as a huge crisis. 2050 में we are going to be the world's capital, I mean the capital of the world in obesity. Our country already, I mean, there are surveys telling us, on average in the country, 20 to 25% people are already overweight and obese, but in some cases, in some segments of the population, it is more than 30-35%. So crisis has already come. But what we have been doing is following policies that are replicating what the mistakes of the West have been. जो अमेरिका ने गलती करी वही हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं, एंड विद ड्यू अपॉलॉजीज टू अमित जी एंड टू ऑल द स्टार्टअप्स हियर, but I do want to make a request ki, this is the mistake that our government research institutes have done. See, I am at IIT Delhi and मैं अपने आप को भी इसमें जिम्मेदार ठहराती हूँ, and बाकी भी ICR के जो institutes हैं, हम अपना research direction, हम अपना innovation direction, हम अपना startup direction बाहर वेस्ट से देखते हैं, वो जो कर रहे हैं वो सही है, वो उस चीज को हमें करना है। वेस्ट ने, अमेरिका ने अपनी एग्रीकल्चर पॉलिसीज अपना के आज उनका डेटा आप देखेंगे, ये तो 2015 का डेटा है, 2015 70%, ये ध्यान से सुनिए, मुझे विश्वास नहीं हुआ जब मैंने पहले ये डेटा सुना, 70% ऑफ अमेरिकन अडल्ट्स आर ओवरवेट और ओबीज। आप सोच भी नहीं सकते, 7 out of 10 तो उन्होंने अपने एग्रीकल्चर का इतना सत्यानाश किया, they have messed up their agriculture so badly, and this is the health outcomes that they are seeing in relation to, you know, many other, of course, things are associated with it. But why should we go down the same way? I mean, don't we have other options that we can think about? And specifically for the startups, I mean, my only suggestion is that most technologies that we have worked on are promoting monocultures on farms. Single crop को कैसे efficient बनाए, single crop को how do we ensure, you know, more crop per drop is again for monoculture single crops on the farm. Most sensors are related to single crop kind of parameters. We need to figure out technologies that can promote multi-cropping, that can work with natural farming, but then they will not work with what you had started, Ramanji, earlier about speed and scale. Speed and scale is the mantra of the West, and they want, and the startup world जो आप कह रहे हैं ना कि वो ROI उनको चाहिए कि जल्दी से जल्दी उनका पैसा उनको वापस मिले. I mean, things in the natural world, things in our bodies, this whole parallel convergence can't work on speed and scale. हमें localized system समझने होंगे, diversity के साथ चलना होगा. How do we create technology चाहिए? You know, if we say कि जी, you know, we can go off, you know, start growing millets again and we don't need technology. Well, all of the millets were processed by hand by labor of women, and it was very backbreaking work. अब क्यों जाए वापस औरतें उस काम को करने के लिए? We need good technologies that can do the processing of millets, but without removing the nutrition. जो आज technologies हैं, you know, milling technologies, not only have we destroyed the nutrition in rice and wheat, you know, I have some interesting anecdotes on that, but adopting the same thing for millets and saying long shelf life chahiye, so you remove all of the bran, that's again destroying the nutrition. Ab millets la rahe ho, but again, you're not really contributing to health. So please, how do we, you know, incentivize and help and support startups to work with diversity, work with smaller scale, you know, work with these alternative crops that are there, not try to promote more efficient irrigation. I mean, irrigation ने बहुत बर्बादी मचाई है हमारे देश में in various kinds of ways. You know, we've had historical ways of working with water very interestingly. Such excellent technologies. How do we again innovate with those technologies, with that knowledge? And sort of the final bit I want to say here is that you know, we have to ultimately provide support for this transition to happen. You know, without support, expecting ki, you know, farmers ho gaye. I mean, if we are putting in so much money into startups, we are putting in so much money into urea, we are putting in, you know, just jo ma'am ne bataya, Reena ma'am ne, about, you know, all of these kind of, say, neutral support systems that are there. We need more positive support systems. We have to incentivize farmers for diversity, and we don't really have a mechanism for that. MSP as a mechanism and guaranteed purchase is still single commodity centric. उसमें आप 10 commodities ले लोगे, 20 ले लोगे. How much can the government actually buy? We need to create imaginative policies that can work with diversity, but work at the local scale. How do we have district level startups, you know, that understand ecosystems at you know, district by district ecosystem change hota hai, landscape change hota hai. So, you know, funding as well as ideas and innovation, everything has to happen at that agroecological scale. And how do we do that? And how do we get the policies converged at that level? That's really the challenge in front of us. I'll stop. Thank you.
And thanks a lot, Dr. Kumar. I think a very pertinent point that you make. How do we look at agroecological zone as a unit of intervention? I think, but also you did mention about कि जो कितने सारे अलग-अलग systems आ रहे हैं. Like अगर हम agri transition में बात करें, health की बात करें, हम nutrition की बात करें, हम शायद यहाँ पे जो डॉक्टर सिंह ऑल्सो मेंशन कि जो नरेगा एंड यू नो रूरल डेवलपमेंट सिस्टम की भी बात कर रहे हैं. जो मुझे एक चैलेंज दिखता है कि इनको इकट्ठा लाइक कहाँ पे ये कन्वर्ज हो रहे हैं. मतलब उसी से मेरा सवाल डॉक्टर सिंह के पास ये जाएगा. डॉक्टर सिंह, डू यू सी अ स्कोप ऑफ दीज गेटिंग कन्वर्ज्ड इन द सेंस कि माय क्वेश्चन अगेन टू यूज टू फोल्ड. ये जो इतने सारे सिस्टम्स, अगर हेल्थ का भी हम प्रोविजन देख रहे हैं एंड हम अगर विश करते कि अगर द एंटायर एग्रीकल्चरल ट्रांजिशन अगर हो, कीपिंग इन माइंड माय हेल्थ सिस्टम्स, माय लाइवलीहुड सिस्टम्स, माय यू नो सॉइल सिस्टम्स, कहाँ पे ये वाला हमारा थॉट प्रोसेस को कन्वर्ज करना चाहिए इन टर्म्स ऑफ आई मीन वो इंस्टीट्यूशन क्या होगा, ये कन्वर्जिंग पावर किसके पास बैठना चाहिए. दूसरा, do we see such institutions already existing, and उसमें क्या capacities होने चाहिए? So, and much sorry, the third level that I would want is कि do we also see existing policy provisions? ऐसे अगर हमारे पास policies है क्या जिसको हम already इस चीज पे leverage कर सकते हैं?
थैंक यू रामांशु। मैं आपको अपना पंजाब का एक्सपीरियंस लेके चलूंगी, क्योंकि उसमें हमने बहुत ज़्यादा काम किया है और हमने उसमें पीएयू के साथ भी काम किया है। सारे भी उनके जो प्लानिंग कमीशन वाले जो लोग हैं उनके साथ, फार्मर्स के साथ मिलजुल करके हमने, सॉरी, हाँ, उन सब के साथ काम किया है। यहाँ पे हमारा स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ये है कि हम सारी की सारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज जो हैं फार्मर्स को देना चाहते हैं कि एनवायरनमेंट वही सुधार ले, फूड सिक्योरिटी की प्रॉब्लम भी वही सॉल्व कर ले, वो सब कर ले। एट द एंड ऑफ द डे फार्मर जो भी कर रहा है उसका वो एक प्रोफेशन है, जैसे हम सब लोग प्रोफेशन कर रहे हैं। सारे लोग एट द एंड ऑफ द डे प्रॉफिट, डेफिनेटली जब तक उसको फार्मर को प्रॉफिट नहीं होगा वो कुछ नहीं वहां से हटने वाला, कितना भी आप उसको इम्पोज कर लो। हमने जितने भी फार्मर्स के साथ बात करी है, डाइवर्सिटी की जो बात हो रही है, क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन में कितने डिकेड से ये बात चल रही है कि वीट राइस की मोनोक्रॉपिंग, ये हमने अभी नया नया ये प्रॉब्लम अभी नहीं देखा है, सबको पता है। सब लोग इस पे काम कर रहे हैं, सभी लोग उसको हटाना चाहते हैं, फार्मर भी करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन क्यों वो वहां से हट नहीं रहा है? जब हमने उसकी इकोनॉमिक्स देखी तो हमने क्या देखा कि जो इंसेंटिव स्ट्रक्चर जो है वो उस पैडी पे ही ज्यादा जा रहा है। अब फर्टिलाइजर जो है पैडी सबसे ज्यादा ले रहा है। हमने सबसे पहले इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंजम्पशन देखा। अब इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जो है, हमने मंथली इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंजम्पशन का डेटा लिया, वहाँ के इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जो कॉर्पोरेशन है। हमने देखा खरीफ सीजन में जो है 67% जो है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी खरीफ सीजन में जा रही है। दैट्स एन एवरेज। सो दैट मीन्स पावर सब्सिडी जो पंजाब सरकार ने फ्री दे रखी है, किसी फार्मर को इस बात की कोई चिंता नहीं है कि भाई कितना पानी बचाएं, या फिर अगर हम पैडी लगा रहे हैं तो मीथेन जो है, मीथेन की अगर कंटिन्यूस फ्लडिंग करते हैं मीथेन भी बहुत ज्यादा होती है। अगर हम AWD करेंगे, DSR वाली टेक्नोलॉजीज अपनाते हैं कोई भी किसान, तो उसमें मीथेन भी बचेगी, पानी भी बचेगा। लेकिन सरकार ने वो पूरे उसको फ्री इलेक्ट्रिसिटी दे रखी है, वो बस पंप ऑन रहता है और वो सारा चलता रहता है। 67 to 70, कई कई साल में 72% ऑफ द इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इज मूविंग टूवर्ड्स द खरीफ सीजन, और उस खरीफ में 90% ऑफ द इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इज मूविंग टू द पैडी। तो हमने जब, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि जो भी अब जैसे 9,000 करोड़ की सब्सिडी दे रही है पंजाब सरकार किसान को, 9,331 करोड़, उसमें से 6,000 करोड़ के आसपास तो पैडी में ही जा रहा है। तो इसका मतलब जो भी सब्सिडी है वो पैडी में जा रही है, तो ये एक सब्सिडी हुई। उसके बाद फिर फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी। फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी ये पंजाब सरकार नहीं दे रही है, ये गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया दे रही है। वो फर्टिलाइजर भी वो आराम से, यूरिया फ्री नहीं मिल रहा, सब्सिडी तो मिल ही रही है ना, 80% तो फ्री है ही उसको। वो यूरिया के बैग डालता जा रहा है उस पे। फिर क्या होता है, फिर इरिगेशन नेटवर्क जो लगा रखा है, कैनाल इरिगेशन है, वो है, वो वाला सब्सिडी आ रहा है। फिर बहुत सारी स्कीम्स जो हैं जो सरकार ने चला रखी हैं, CSS वाली स्कीम्स होती हैं, और कुछ पंजाब सरकार की भी स्कीम्स हैं कि ये मशीनरी आप ये कर लो, ये राइस के लिए ये टेलर ले लो, ये वाला कर लो, तो उस पे भी उसको पैसा मिल जाता है। तो सारा मिला के हमने ये देखा कि 1 हेक्टेयर पे अगर किसान जो पैडी का फार्मर है उसको 40,000 जो है वो इंसेंटिव मिल रहा है। और अगर हमने उसकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी, कॉस्ट ऑफ कल्टीवेशन से हमने उसकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी देखी, प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी उसकी आ रही है 90,000, 1 लाख 1 हेक्टेयर पे ग्रो करने के लिए। अगर 90,000 से 1 लाख तक उसकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी आ रही है, उसमें से उसको आराम से 40,000 के आसपास ये इंसेंटिव मिल रहा है, तो मतलब 35% तो प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी उसकी वैसे ही बैठ जा रही है। अगर हम उसके कंपैरिजन में मेज को देखते हैं, उसकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी बस 32,000 आती है, और उसमें फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी और ये पावर सब्सिडी और सारी सब्सिडी, सारे इंसेंटिव्स अगर हम मिला के चलते हैं, वो 6-7 हजार ही बैठता है। तो प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी जो है उसकी उतनी नहीं बैठती है, क्योंकि वो जैसे आपने भी बोला ये वाली बात, खाली वीट राइस पे हमने वो लगा रखा है। प्रोक्योर तो सरकार वही कर रही है ना, मेज नहीं करेगी, ना लेग्यूम्स करेगी, ना ऑयल सीड्स करेगी, कॉटन से भी वो हटता जा रहा है। तो सारा का सारा जो हमारा पंजाब में 82% जो है वीट राइस क्रॉपिंग सिस्टम ही बैठ रहा है। 42% इज राइस एंड वो 40% इज वीट। उसके अलावा कुछ है ही नहीं, क्योंकि सरकार सारा का सारा उनका वो ले रही है और सारी की सारी सब्सिडीज इस पे जा रही हैं। तो हमने क्या प्रपोज किया था, जो कि वहाँ की सरकार भी तैयार है, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट भी तैयार है उस चीज के लिए, कि ये फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट दे रही है, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट दे रही है पावर सब्सिडी, तो ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट 50-50% अगर मिला जुला करके 35,000 रुपीज पर हेक्टेयर फार्मर को दे दे, ये फार्मर भी उस चीज के लिए तैयार है। क्योंकि वो जो गैप है, प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी गैप, जब तक फार्मर को नहीं मिलेगा ना, तब तक वो हम बस बातें ही करते रहेंगे ऐसी वेबिनार में, कॉन्फ्रेंस में, हर जगह की ये भाई हटाओ, क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन करो, न्यूट्रिशनल डाइवर्सिटी करो, ये हो रहा है, लेकिन जब तक फार्मर को वो पैसा नहीं मिलेगा तब तक फार्मर नहीं हटेगा। और ये पॉसिबल है क्योंकि इसमें एक्स्ट्रा पैसा नहीं लग रहा। सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी बच रही है, क्योंकि लेग्यूम तो आपको सबको पता है, नाइट्रोजनस क्या जरूरत है उसको, खुद ही वो राइजोबियम के साथ वो आराम से फिक्स करके वो बनाएगा, उसको फर्टिलाइजर उतना लगना नहीं, ऑयल सीड्स में भी उतना फर्टिलाइजर लगना नहीं है, तो फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी बच रही है। अब पैडी अगर वो ग्रो कर रहा है, 20 to 25 इरिगेशन लगेंगे एक सीजन में, कई कई बार 30 भी लग जाते हैं डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द सॉइल कंडीशन। बाकी जो क्रॉप्स हैं 4-5 इरिगेशन लगेंगे। इतने कम इरिगेशन अगर लग रहे हैं, 4-5 इरिगेशन, तो अब देखिए पावर सब्सिडी बच रही है, पानी भी बच रहा है, सब कुछ बच रहा है ना। तो सरकार का पैसा बच रहा है पावर सब्सिडी से, और ये पंजाब गवर्नमेंट का, और उधर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का, मेरा मतलब है नॉट स्पेसिफिकली, और उधर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी का बच रहा है। अगर हम ये पैडी से ऑयल सीड्स और लेग्यूम्स में जाते हैं, किसी भी सरकार को कोई एक्स्ट्रा पैसा नहीं देना है, बस रीपर्पस करना है, वही पैसा वो किसान को दे दे या उस फॉर्म में दे दे, लेकिन 5 साल के दे दे। अब हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट ने शुरू किया, ये 17,500 किया उन्होंने, 35,000 नहीं करा, वो भी बस एक साल देते हैं। भाई उनके हर साल पैसे बच रहे हैं ना, तो हर साल दे, वो थोड़ा डबल दे, और अगर खाली हरियाणा सरकार दे रही है, आधा पैसा वो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट दे दे, तो क्योंकि उनकी भी फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी तो बची रही है ना। नहीं, लेकिन वो एक साल देते हैं, तो फिर उससे क्या होता है, किसान एक साल पैसे ले लेता है, फिर से पैडी पे चला जाता है, क्योंकि भाई उसको तो हर साल प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी चाहिए ना, एक साल की प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी से तो कुछ नहीं होगा। तो यही बस हमारा यही सुझाव है, और हम इसी चीज पे काम भी कर रहे हैं, और पंजाब के साथ हमने काम किया था, तो ये दोनों सरकारों ने मिलकर शुरू किया, बट उन्होंने भी वही किया 17,500। अगर इतना वैसा होगा तब नहीं हो पाएगा। एक और चीज बस मैं लास्ट पॉइंट बोलना चाहूंगी कि इससे एमिशंस भी बचता है। तो अब ये जो कार्बन मार्केट है, गवर्नमेंट को प्रमोट करना चाहिए कि प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स आए, उनको इनवाइट करना चाहिए, ताकि वो पैसा तो बच ही रहा है, फर्टिलाइजर तो बच ही रहा है, एमिशंस भी बच रहे हैं अगर पैडी से वो शिफ्ट करेंगे। तो जो एमिशन की जो सेविंग है, क्योंकि पंजाब में हमने कैलकुलेट करा था एक और स्टडी में, 1 हेक्टेयर में 5 टन जो है ग्रीन हाउस गैस एमिशन लगता है, और अगर आप लेग्यूम्स को ले लो या ऑयल सीड्स को ले लो, तो भाई वो 300-400 किलोग्राम्स लग रहा है। तो आप देखिए कम से कम 4 टन की सेविंग है। और 1 टन पे जो है, आजकल जो मार्केट चल रहा है, कोई 35-40 USD दे रहा है, मतलब डॉलर पर हेक्टेयर, या कई कई जगह तो भाई 70-80 भी मिल रहा है, लेकिन इंडिया की मैं बात कर रही हूँ। तो वो पैसा भी अगर किसान को मिल जाएगा, वहां से 40,000 आएगा, ये कार्बन क्रेडिट्स भी अगर किसान को मिल जाएगा, तो कोई भी आराम से वो शिफ्ट करेगा। और इसमें किसी का ना किसान का खर्चा है, ना ही किसी सरकार का खर्चा है। सो दिस इज व्हाट आई विल स्टॉप हियर।
नो, आई थिंक डॉक्टर सिंह आपके पॉइंट्स में पर्टिनेंट थे। आई मीन एक जरूरी है, हमको पता है कि द एंटायर जो यूरिया सब्सिडी के हम बारे में बात करें, केमिकल सब्सिडी बात करें, दैट्स अ प्रॉब्लम, एंड नॉट श्योर कि हाउ कैन बी दैट चेंज और नो। बट आई थिंक एग्री ट्रांजिशन के लिए एक चीज जो डॉक्टर सिंह यू हैव alluded टू, एंड डॉक्टर कुमार यू हैव आल्सो इंडिकेटेड ऑन दैट फ्रंट, इज कैसे बाकी चीजों को हम लेवरेज करके ये ओवरऑल हम फार्मर की प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी के एंगल से भी इस चीज को हम देखें। अगर नरेगा है, अगर SRLM है, अगर यहाँ से जो सब्सिडी रिपर्पजिंग की बात करें, ये हमारे पास ऑलरेडी प्लेटफॉर्म्स है दैट कैन बेसिकली एक ही चीज को हम थोड़े से इनोवेटिव एंगल से देख सकते हैं। बट इट इज ऑल्सो अबाउट प्राइमरीली अबाउट ब्रिंगिंग इन द फार्मर प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी। So on that point, Amit ji, my question to you is, and I might be wrong in framing this question, but मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि हम अगर स्टार्टअप्स के देखें, एग्री स्पेस में स्टार्टअप्स के देखें, हमारा फोकस बहुत ज्यादा टेक्नोलॉजी सेंट्रिक रहा है। आई माइट बी रॉन्ग अगेन गिविंग दैट डिस्क्लेमर, बट मुझे जितना तक लगता है हमारा फोकस काफी टेक्नोलॉजी सेंट्रिक रहा है। नाउ जो उसमें मुझे लगता है कि अगर हम टेक्नोलॉजी सेंट्रिक रह रहे हैं, एडॉप्शन का बोझ भी फार्मर के ऊपर आ रहा है. With that adoption board and the new technology, and hence there are a lot of other aspects that come in कि उसका financing कहाँ से आएगा, वो उसका risk taking ability है या नहीं. India में at least there are more than 60% smallholder farmers, तो वो risk taking ability, which also makes it a difficult spot for everybody. And hence at the end the loser over here that becomes is कि हमारा transition to climate smart और ये this जो transition हम चाह रहे हैं वहाँ पे. But एक और element है about perhaps startups, and you can actually shed more light on this, is farmer like what is the presence of agri startups in the overall value chain, in this sense post production value chain. Can is like do we see sufficient startups in that space which can actually perhaps look at increasing the value of the crops at the source itself? I think Dr. Kumar भी जो वो बोल रहे हैं कि उस पॉइंट से हम लोग देख सकते हैं कि ताकि जो ओवरऑल एज ओल्ड ड्रजरी रहा है, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मिलेट related अगर हम कुछ कहते हैं, अगर एज ओल्ड ड्रजरी रहा, is that being addressed? Do we also see startups coming and providing that market to farmers ki again localized level where there is more procurement and hence there is more profit which is reaching the farmers? So again, two level questions to you ki what is the current landscape around that, and do you see startups plugging in more, and is that a beneficial approach for startups?
True. Ramanchu, I can see this is again very big and tough question at all, because there are two sides. At the one side is the a farmer who actually looking for a very affordable solution, that too in a less time, less cost, he will get the solution to his problem. And at the one side, we are dealing with the startups who are actually looking to generate the, of course, to be a sustainable. They are looking for the revenue generation part, and at the end they trying to serve the purpose of the farmer, try to solve the problem. So I'll coming to your first question, like the overall landscape and how the value chain and is happening. So what I find it like many startups are solving a problem from the point of view of the production, and getting access to the market. And what happened, like if you see the previous year, we were celebrating the International Millets Year, and so many startups, if you see, are coming up with that trend. No, like there is always some trends are coming up. So everybody is trying to go into that time, and they are just neglect the actually opportunities are arising. So my point is, like, before the startups are jumping into the solutions and they are looking into the trends, they should avoid, they try to understand the basic core problem, as you rightly mentioned. Like the farmers, they need to have the better solutions from the both point of view, like from the production as well as getting the sustainability revenue from their, from the livelihoods point of view. Say. So what happening, the solutions which are, I find it, are coming very, very good at the ground level. Like the farmers are now able to produce, they can do the small kind of value addition into their farm level, like that may be a sort of cleaning, grading, or maybe they can do a kind of portable, kind of cold storages at the farm level. Even they will get the access to the, cloud storages where they can store their food stuff to get the better produce to their values, and where actually the technology is involved. And you rightly said, the technology driven startups are coming more than the value, value addition into the things. If you see, if you ask me, the last 3-4 years startups, the portfolio, out of 10 startups, you can see the 4 startups are into the value addition, and that out of 4, 2 are into the millet processing. Richa ma'am and Reena ma'am said rightly that after the food security, nutrition is one part which attracting more and more to the startups, and they are coming up like the superfoods. You will get iron more, of course, biofortified, and those varieties are serving that purpose, which is the properties there. But they are coming with, इसमें मसाला में ये डाल दिया, उसमें फिर मैंने ये mix कर दिया, and then have produced the innovation kind of product. Now I'm not going that debate like what is the innovation, because different ministries or different persons take this definition differently. Like somebody may say innovation is something IP generate किया है क्या, इसका patent आपने किया है क्या. somebody says कि भाई इसका रेवेन्यू जनरेट किया है तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी अच्छी है या फिर ये सोल्यूशन अच्छा है, कोई बोलेगा कि ये एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट कर रहा है, प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहा है तो ये इनोवेशन है, इस स्टार्टअप्स को सपोर्ट करो. सो there is a debate between different forums with the different panelists amongst them कि भाई इस स्टार्टअप को फंड करे, इसको ना करे. So everybody takes this definition of innovation and startup differently, but at the end the purpose is that how the core problem startups are trying to solve. Coming to your second part of the question, Ramanshu, I would say like how the startups can, from prototype to coming up with the, the scale up stage. So there are ways few like they can join the hands, there is a say that you cannot dive into the river, opposite side of the river. You should go with the flow. So the point is that you should have the alignment with the ecosystem. Do the partnerships with the cooperatives, do the partnership with government, do the partnership with the research institutions, which actually make the sense in all point of view to make the extension or make the promotion of your startup or the technology to the farmers who are actually the beneficiaries. And they will help you in other way, like do the validation of your product, getting access to the farmers, and of course they will give you some kind of funds where you are not able to do the demonstration. So I have a very good example, and with that I'll stop with my answer. Like this, in the beginning of the year, Satya Nadella was here in Delhi for the Microsoft, which is coming with AI in agriculture. Really happy to add here that a small contribution from my previous organization. We did a very pilot study with a couple of states of the farmers for the sugarcane crop, where a couple of startups like Fasal is one of the startup which was I worked very closely. Then the Cropin, then True Farms, Transitive, the set of very small startups, KVKs, of course, supported by the ICR, Krishi Vigyan Kendras, and the farmers. They came together, they demonstrate that how AI is going to be support to the farmers. And as I earlier said, seeing is the believing what the principle works. Farmers are getting the results that how technology is helping them. And they are now realizing that this technology we should adopt it. And these kinds of technologies are getting the businesses. So this is a very simple model that you should have the alignment with the ecosystem, go with the flow, don't go with the opposite. Otherwise, there are chances of failure or more.
Thanks. I just didn't realize how fast we moved in terms of time. And I just know that we just have 15 more minutes, but I really like the kind of conversations that we have. And I just have one open question for all the participants and all the panelists over here. And perhaps if you could just take 30 seconds to respond to this last question. Today, our topic was around converging policies, and we spoke about the challenges that's there, the opportunities that's there, and the way it can look at. But my question to all of you is, and you can give your individual views, is where does this convergence happen? At what level does this convergence happen? So, just a line response. I know it's a difficult question to summarize, but just a line response. So again, I'll start with you, Dr. Kumar.
So since I come from the research ecosystem, I'll restrict myself to that. I think increasingly now the government is realizing the need for multidisciplinary approaches to research. So ICMR is doing that. Now the Anusandhan Research Foundation is trying to promote multidisciplinary proposals, and ICAR and sort of, I think the ag ecosystem, they just did a recent call for NMNF for research proposals. And in there, one very interesting thing they had is they allowed civil society and non-research institutes or academic institutes to also put in proposals. I think that's a very, very big thing in trying to bring other forms of knowledge back into the ecosystem. When we speak about agroecology, it's our farmers who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. And I heard about some very nice proposals from Himachal Pradesh specifically, some women farmers, some older farmers who wanted to, in fact, experiment on their farms. And this kind of funding support, if it can be brought in for multiple disciplines within academia, but also for collaborations outside academia, I think that can really help a lot in figuring out, where are the gaps, what kind of technologies do we really need, what kind of things are actually working, what kind of resources are required, what kind of social ecological convergences can we in fact think about? Is this in fact helping the poorest and the most marginalized? or is it only, elite farmers who are able to transition? There are a lot of these questions we don't have answers to. And I know I've taken more than a minute, but yes, I think the research ecosystem is a very important place to begin this kind of convergence.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Kumar. Dr. Singh, over to you. Dr. Singh, if you're speaking, we are not being able to.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So see, I am working from the policy side. So my answer is like all these conversions, it should happen at the policy level. And one good example which I can see now at this is PM Pranam. I would like to just highlight this because now the state government, they have taken this initiative. Like if any state, the central government has taken this initiative, like if any state is reducing their fertilizer consumption, like they are tracking it for the last 3 years, if they are able to reduce it for the 3 years consecutively, then the 50% of the that particular saved amount, they will be transferring it to the state for their other developmental activities. So that's a very good initiative, although it just 2 years have this scheme is in operation for the last 2 years, and it just one or two states, I think Karnataka, and there are two more states where they were able to reduce it, but it's just for 1 year. So I'm just hopeful that this should happen, and we will be able to see good results out of it. It's a very good initiative.
Thanks, Dr. Singh. Amitji, over to you.
Yeah. So I'll be concluding it with only 4 words. That first will be the adopt the sandbox framework and convergence of the schemes. So sandbox frameworks where actually we give the free hand to the startups, allow them to uh, deploy their innovations with little liberty in of course rules and regulations, easy access to the funding. I think I saw somebody's mentioned in the comments also that getting the funding is not easy task, of course. So easily access to the funding, easy access to the institutions, that may be in terms of getting the approvals, in terms of validation, in terms of access to the VCs, ACs, anything. So sandbox framework could be more into the favorable with the startups. And the second one is the conversion of the schemes. Like as I said in the very beginning of my, of this session, like various different schemes are there, and startups, they are having a lot of things to do. They cannot go in a different portals and do their job and find out the different schemes, eligibility criteria, and apply. Make a such a very simple framework where everybody will get benefited. And if already one is get benefited, let give the chance to the another one, because now it becomes the business for the startups, get a grant and multiple grants from again and again and get the benefit. So who is actually जो हकदार है उसको हक मिलना चाहिए, but हक हर एक को अपना हक मिलना जरूरी है. That's what I will say, and I will stop it here.
Thanks a lot for summarizing this. I think we still have 9 more minutes, which means that I have time for 3 audience questions, and I do see 3 just hands up. So I think I'll start with Dr. Suman. If you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
डेफिनेटली सर. सर, मिस्टर अमित जो कह रहे थे एक्चुअल में वो रियलिस्टिक है. हम लोग भी वैलिडेशंस के लिए डिफरेंट डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस में जाते हैं, और जब ग्रांट के लिए हम अप्रोच करते हैं, पिच देते हैं, तो वो हमें हमसे वैलिडेशंस नहीं पूछते कि कहाँ से आपने वैलिडेट किया है. अगर हम इन लैब और इन हाउस वैलिडेशन की बात करते हैं तो वो उसे अप्रूवल्स नहीं देते. बट जहाँ हम इंस्टीट्यूशनल वैलिडेशंस की बात करते हैं तो एक्चुअल में वो इजी टास्क नहीं है वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए. उनकी वो हमसे एक चार्ज जो है वो फी के फॉर्म में लेते हैं, और वो काफी बड़ा अमाउंट है. तो स्टार्टअप्स के लिए ये फिजिबल नहीं है कि सिर्फ एक क्रॉप के लिए या एक एक्सपेरिमेंट के लिए वो 3 to 5 लाख एक एक्सपेरिमेंट के लिए दे. तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत ही चैलेंजिंग हो जाता है, और ग्रांट अवेल करना भी अपने आप में बहुत इजी टास्क नहीं है. और जैसा कि सर कह रहे थे कि केवीकेज और जो आईसीआर के एक्सपांशन यूनिट्स हैं, उनके साथ में कोलैबोरेशन जो है हम पिछले 6 महीनों से उनके साथ ट्राई करें कोलैबोरेशन का, लेकिन वो नहीं हो पा रहा है। तो उन्हीं की बात को मैं यहाँ रखना चाह रही हूँ कि ये सारी चीजें फिजिबल होती हुई नहीं दिख रही है एक्चुअल में। तो एग्जैक्टली हमें क्या करना चाहिए उसके लिए?
अमित जी, आई थिंक क्वेश्चन आपके लिए।
I would take it in a other way. I would not say rather it's a question. It's a comment, I would say, because this is what the pain point I am putting in front of everybody, and this is really reality is there. Like getting access to the right institution, getting the validation is not a easy job. Because of course there is no such a policy framework in place. Like I would take another 1 minute of Startup India initiative. Like if you want to get the IP and then you will get the reimbursement, such a schemes policies are there. Like close to, if you international patent, you have to spend around 2 lakhs to 2.5 lakh rupees. And states are coming up, they are taking initiative that you will get the reimbursement once you file the patent, and you will get the reimbursement. But for the validation part, like ma'am rightly mentioned, a few institutions are charging, of course, because their machines, manpowers, many things are involved, and they're charging for that. But there is no standard SOPs there, like for such a things, how much should be the charges are there. So there has to be some such a policy framework in place which can give the justification, to the starters at a one window system, where like if it is a food, where they should go, if it is a machine, where they should go, if it is related some kind of biotechnology related innovation, should go. So there is no such a kind of policy framework is not there. On behalf of many time when I was working with ministry, I tried to raise this point many times. Hopefully, the 2.0 policy, startup 2.0 policy, will come up with such a provisions. But Dr. Suman, I totally agree, and I have taken this as my question, and I'm putting everywhere whenever I get a chance to put into the forums.
Sir, thank you.
Sorry. Dr. Shanmuga Kumar, if I can ask you to unmute yourself and ask the
Yeah,
question.
hi. Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. It was very insightful. And so, Amit sir, I have a question, like I would say more than a question, I have a suggestion. Being a startup founder in agri-tech, especially we work on developing a technology. So, of course, relying on a grant is one option, that only one option I would say we have it, because investors doesn't give money until unless you are having a traction. So the one option we have is a grant. Of course, that it's good, but the other side of the grant, that what we see, the money doesn't come on time. So as a startup, we put our time into making the innovation, but if the money is not coming in time, so that's one of the major problem in the startup ecosystem, especially in agri-tech. I think this is one of the major problem. And as you rightly pointed out, the investors who are looking at agri-tech startups, even I pitch to at least, like I write every day one email to a VC or an angel investor. I keep have a lot of interactions, but still they ask you, like, are you making money? How much you are making it? What was your last year revenue, right? This is a one key problem. Maybe identifying a right technology, and you rightly pointed out there's a huge gap in the post harvest. Even though you produce good effort on your pre-harvest and then you harvested it, if eventually it get lost in the post-harvest, then what's the point of putting that much effort on the pre-harvest? So as a startup founder, I would say, like, there should be equal priority given to the pre-harvest, harvest, and a post-harvest ecosystem, so that we can able to reduce the loss, we can able to retain the quality. So that's one aspect that what I want to add it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's my
Dr. Shanmuga Kumar, I just
yes.
want to, because it's just in interest of time, I'll just take one more question, and maybe I'll just let that be. In case there are any more questions, I would urge our organizers to perhaps, collect those questions and share it with the panelists. So maybe I'll reach to Ms. Fatima over here, and if you can just add your question, and then we can take it.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much. So I think what I want to know or understand about is how crucial in today's time the soil health is, because government ने already schemes रखे हैं. There are schemes in place which promotes testing soil. सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड्स फार्मर्स को दिए जाते हैं, वो एक चीज है. बट on ground, how effective it is, what change it is making, in the lives of farmers. क्योंकि एट द एंड आप क्रॉप ग्रो कर रहे हो, फूड सिक्योरिटी की बात है, वो सब कुछ सॉइल पे ही आ जाती है. So what can happen, that ensures that farmers get their soil tests done every season or at least once in a year? Because वो चीज हम जहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं वो चीज हमें नहीं दिख रही है. We spoke to a lot of people from agriculture, stakeholders in the sector, and ये था कि वो scalability एक problem आ जाती है, which I understand
Miss
because of
Fatima,
manpower.
sorry for cutting you short, but I'll just because we just have 2 more minutes here, I'll hand it out to our panelists to have a very quick reflection on the questions that I've raised. But I would also encourage you to perhaps draft your question and share it with the Switch On team, and they can pull it and then perhaps share it with
Sure.
the panelists.
Can I just add one line, one last line, like a simple
Sure.
few words? So, what do change makers and policy makers, think about data-driven farming, bringing it in front of farmers? As Sir rightly said, that tech is growing. Even in agriculture, farmers have started adopting technology. But are there policies in place?
Okay, I'll just stop the questions right now. I'll hand it over to the panelists if they have any quick reflections, and after that, I'll hand it to Amrita.
I think,
So
shall
I
I?
will just quickly respond to the question of the soil health. Yeah, it is, you have rightly mentioned that, some around 50 million of the soil samples they have been tested currently, but there is no interlinking, I mean, with the policy thing and no recommendation. Like if it is a deficient, then very few farmers, they get those recommendations things. And but the government is definitely working on it. There is a program there which one Xtac, if you're aware, which Microsoft is also doing it. So they are actually trying to link digitally all the farmers, all those land maps are being generated. They are, all the land parcels are now being geotagged, and all that things are definitely happening. And there are so many different interrelated schemes like PM Kisan, there are beneficiaries, and then there are the crop insurance schemes. All these things are putting, the government is just your answer to this question whether there is any policy. Yes, the government is actively working on all these things, and soon there will be all these interlinking and this digitalization and all those technologies, they will be integrated in one platform. So that it is in progress now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
If I can briefly jump in, Ramanji, to respond actually just to the last comment on data-driven agriculture. I think, one of the things I do want to share here is that, yes, data is important. Coming from a research ecosystem myself, we all thrive on understanding and, getting access to developing, finding good data, good evidence. But when it comes to agriculture, a lot of things are from farmers' own experiences that may or may not be easily captured in data, whether it is, AI-based, whatever kind of stuff, databases one wants to put together, whether it's through sensors, especially with climate change, things are changing so quickly. So even traditional knowledge that farmers have had sometimes needs to be revised and needs to be rethought. So I think rather than pushing us into directions where it's, AI or data-driven agriculture can sort of, has all the answers and, farmers are sort of clueless. And once they get all this data, they can do things. Or, going the other extreme that farmers know everything and, they can solve all these problems on their own. None of those two extremes really would work. And we do need to recognize the plurality of knowledge forms that exist and that need to be brought into bear to think about how to tackle the very big issues of sustainability and climate change.
Amit ji, any closing remarks? Yeah.
I think already this the second question is answer Reena ma'am and Richa. So I'll picked up the first one question, Dr. Shanmugan. And I agree, like there is a delay happen when it comes to the fund release and releasing the funds to the startups, it's totally part of the process, because there are multiple, processes are involved, multiple agencies are involved. Like when it comes to the incubator, so incubator needs to get approvals from the steering committees, then it will go to the ministry. Of course, they have their different agendas, and the budgets will comes to them, and then again need to do the due diligence process, and then finally money comes to the startups. And sometimes budgets and all those things are there. So Reena ma'am is already talked with that part, so I'll not go into that. But the thing is, we have to understand here, the grant or money which is getting to the startup, it's kind of, a perk. It like kind of a bonus you are receiving. So when you get it, you just celebrate one day and start working on the next day. And hope that you have to ready with your financial other options. So grant is something like you are getting to expansion of your, whatever the thoughts you want, to want to test it out. I totally agree, Shanmugan sir, that funds are something which is government is giving to support you, but don't think that it will sustain your business. At the end, you have to survive, you have to generate the revenues, you have to figure out the financial ways, and through which you have to continue your journey. Although by saying in this forum and online it's very good, but when it comes to the practical, it's very tough for this startup to survive, because I myself come up with that background. I shut down with the two startups, and I again begin with a new journey. So it's not a very very easy journey, and everybody saying about the startup. But I totally agree with you that, but I want to make one comment that don't believe that the grants will give you the sustainable model. It will be not going to work. You have to keep it as an option B or C. You have to be generate the revenues. You have to find out the other ways of the getting the finance and run the show. So that's what I want to pass on the message. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks to all the panelists for your brilliant conversation and the insights that you gave. With this, I'll hand it over to Amrita. Amrita, sorry, we've overshot by a couple of minutes, but over to you.
No worries. Thank you, everyone. It was indeed a very insightful and engaging conversation. I thank all the speakers from our end, and also Ramanshudha for beautifully moderating the session. It's really unfortunate that Dr. Dalwai was unable to attend the session due to an unforeseen emergency. Other than that, we hope that today's session helped every one of you understand the intersections of policy, practice, and innovations in our food systems. We will be sharing the meeting the recording link to all of you. Next, we would invite you to join us for the fourth webinar that we will be doing on the 29th of July, which will again be from 4:30, and there we will be discussing sustainable agricultural launchpad, funding, mentorship, and market access. The details of those will again be sent it over to you over email. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a great evening. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend.